Morning, sir. Morning,
Good
ma'am.
morning. I think we still have a couple of minutes, or I think we can start now.
So,
2
couple of
minutes.
minutes, sir? 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Mr. Nilikani has also joined, so yes, we can request him to.
He's having some slight trouble. He seems to have was there for a moment and then he went off.
Morning, sir.
There.
Oh,
इसमें कुछ नीचे लगाओगे इसमें कुछ इसको ऊपर कर दीजिए नीचे सब बैठा इधर से बेटर है कैमरा ऑन है मेरा
So shall we start now?
Yeah, we can start, please.
Good morning. On behalf of the Competition Commission of India, it's my pleasure to welcome you all to this workshop on startup ecosystem and competition. I would request Mr. Sugato Ghosh Dastidar, Secretary, Competition Commission of India, to kindly deliver the welcome address.
Chairman and co-founder Infosys and founding chairman UIDAI, Shri Nandan Nilikani, Chairman CCI, Shri A.K. Gupta, members of the commission, Srimati Sangeeta Verma and Shri T.S. Bishnoi, distinguished panelists, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. I am pleased to welcome you all to this multi-stakeholder workshop on startup ecosystems and competition. The aim of the workshop is to understand the startup ecosystem in India and the competition landscape therein. Startups play a vital role in infusing competition in markets with their focus on innovation, new markets and products, often disrupting the status quo. They provide dynamism to markets and offer welfare-enhancing choices to consumers. Today's workshop is a step towards understanding the opportunities and challenges facing Indian startups from a competition standpoint. We are extremely grateful to have Shri Nandan M. Nilikani, Chairman and co-founder Infosys and founding Chairman UIDAI, who has kindly agreed to deliver the keynote address and share his valuable insights with us. On behalf of the CCI, I extend to you a very warm welcome to this workshop. As you are aware, the Competition Commission of India's mandate is to protect and promote competition and fair play in markets through its two instruments of enforcement and advocacy. Antitrust enforcement leads to corrective interventions in the markets adversely affected by collective or unilateral conduct of market participants. The combination regime takes an ex-ante view on the competition impact of a merger or an acquisition in a relevant market. Advocacy creates awareness about the lines between competitive and anti-competitive business conduct, thereby preventing contraventions in addition to encouraging a culture of competition. Both these are instruments, in order to be effective, require deep understanding of markets. We have two technical sessions today. The first will focus on the role of big tech in startup entry and growth, the emerging opportunities and challenges in the startup big tech interface in India, and the other session will look into emerging trends in mergers and acquisitions in the startup space, the key drivers of such mergers and acquisitions, and the implications of growing M&As involving startups for competition and innovation. I take this opportunity to welcome all distinguished panelists and startup representatives from FinTech, Health Tech, EdTech, and others who are here to contribute to the discussions today. I am glad that we have an overwhelming response from the startups, and they are represented across the board. It is my pleasure to also welcome the representatives of IIIT Bangalore, who are our knowledge and implementation partners for the workshop. I extend my thanks to Dr. V. Sridhar and his team for their efforts. This attempt can be successful only if you, as participants, actively partake in the discussions. I extend a warm welcome to each one of you with us today and look forward to productive and engaging deliberations over the course of the day. With these words, I once again welcome Chairman Infosys and UIDAI, Chairman CCI, members of the Commission, and all other dignitaries present here. May I now request Chairperson CCI to deliver the special address.
Shri Nandan Nilekani, Chairman and Co-founder Infosys and founding Chairman UIDAI, that is Aadhaar, my colleagues Dr. Sangeeta Verma, Shri Bhagwan Singh Bishnoi, and officers of CCI, eminent panelists and distinguished participants, good morning. This workshop comes at a time when rapid digitization is changing the way world economy operates, and the COVID-19 pandemic has only accelerated the process. Every possible market, be it retail, e-commerce, food, groceries, payments, deliveries, entertainment, wealth management, trading, healthcare, education, or utilities, has undergone digital transformation, and digital startups have played a key role in this journey. 2021 was phenomenal for Indian startups, from record fundraising by tech startups, initial public offerings, to the emergence of a record 44 startup unicorns. To continue the high spirits, National Startup Day was recently announced by the Honorable Prime Minister to celebrate the contributions of the ecosystem. Let me point out some of the facilitating factors which have spurred the growth of this ecosystem. A sound, proactive support for startups at both the central and state government level, several successful startup entrepreneurs, rapid growth in mobile connectivity, and a rich venture community have all contributed to this evolution. Most importantly, India is the only country which has a digital public infrastructure that broadly comprises Aadhaar and the India Stack, enabling private entrepreneurs to create startups quickly and at affordable costs. In fact, the central government, through recent initiatives for the open network of digital commerce, seeks to facilitate the creation of shared digital infrastructure as was previously done for identity, that is Aadhaar, and payments, that is unified payment interface. These measures will spur innovation and help facilitate the rollout of services by startups in an efficient manner. We are immensely pleased that the founding chairman of UIDAI, that is Aadhaar, Shri Nandan Nilekani, is with us this morning to deliver the keynote address at this workshop on startup ecosystem and competition. This workshop is a part of the Commission's endeavor to use market studies and stakeholders consultations in diverse sectors, particularly in emerging sectors, to help understand the emerging dimensions and parameters of competition. Most of the recent market studies of the Commission have been prompted by emerging business models, or changing competition landscapes owing to technological advancements and digitization of markets. For instance, the market study on e-commerce was conducted to develop a better understanding of the novel competition issues that were emerging with the growing importance of digital platform-centric commerce. Workshops such as these, which are undertaken as part of the advocacy mandate of the Commission, help build regulatory capacities in understanding the nuances of new age markets. They also help bridge knowledge gaps and develop a better understanding of market conditions and business practices. To this end, we proactively reach out to stakeholders representing a diverse range of viewpoints, including industry experts, consumer groups, and other regulators. As the startup ecosystem in India evolves and matures, the startup big tech interface is set to grow in importance. Internationalization of R&D has resulted in companies becoming eager to build on India's initial advantage in software development and engage in both technology deepening and technology widening activities. There is potential for immense value creation resulting from the complementarities between the strengths of big technology companies operating these platforms and startups. India, slated to produce over 100 unicorns by 2025, is likely to witness increased interface between big tech and startups. Network effects and associated economies have created large digital platforms in defined markets both globally as well as within India. At the same time, the gateway position of platforms and platform companies' control over data may give rise to fundamental asymmetries vis-a-vis information and bargaining power. Both the demand side and the supply side depend on these big tech platforms for access and rely on their rankings and algorithms in order to interact efficiently. In this ecosystem, the essentiality of such platforms is critical for accessibility and cannot be ignored. An entire multi-actor ecosystem of sellers, consumers, advertisers, and application developers depends on them for survival. The relationship of multiple actors in the ecosystem with these platforms has the potential to raise competition issues. Collection of data by gatekeeper firms is another critical area which merits deliberations. In the absence of interoperability and data portability, disproportionate control over data may make leveraging easier and increase the possibility of exclusionary conduct. Against this background, the right to data portability provides consumers with autonomy and control over their personal information and restores some balance to the dynamics between the consumers and providers of digital services. In addition, the right to data portability is expected to increase competition and the range of options for consumers in digital markets. Data portability makes it easier for consumers to switch between providers and for new providers to offer tailored products or services based on prior information. Several markets in the digital economy are characterized by a high degree of concentration, and data portability is likely to limit switching barriers in these markets and thus help increase competition. The pro-competition instruments of data interoperability and portability across platforms too have multi-dimensional implications spanning across critical aspects of privacy, data security, etc. The process of defining and maintaining common standards for portable and interoperable data can also be challenging. Against this backdrop, the first session of the workshop, Big Techs and Startups, Synergies and Challenges, will bring together all relevant stakeholders to express their viewpoints on the role of Big Tech in startup entry and growth, as well as the emerging opportunities and challenges in the startup Big Tech interface in India. This is a long session in order to allow time for discussion to explore all the aspects of the interface and understand emerging market dynamics and regulatory proposals, if any. There is another metric on which the ecosystem saw record numbers in 2021, and that is acquisitions. In the last few years, the Indian startup ecosystem has witnessed a spate of high-profile M&A transactions. These acquisitions span various cutting-edge sectors such as fintech, enterprise tech, health tech, and edtech, among others. The profile of the acquirers has also changed. Lately, a new trend has emerged wherein startups are on an acquisition spree encouraged by increased access to funding from institutional investors. No firm trends are emerging. Startups are buying startups but also acquiring established businesses, the primary motivation being to expand market reach, product portfolios, geographic spread, or simply bolster talent pools. Such acquisitions also allow startups to raise larger funding rounds at higher valuations. High funding momentum in the institutional investors market is also resulting in an acquisition spree. Established Indian corporates have also expanded their digital footprint by acquiring startups. These acquisitions may be pro-competitive, generating substantial synergies and efficiencies, yet there may be acquisitions that have anti-competitive risks when such acquisitions result in the strengthening of dominance or pose a significant impediment to effective competition. The characteristics of digital markets have led to the adoption of business models that do not generate sufficient turnover to trigger M&A mandatory notification under the asset turnover thresholds set out under competition laws. It is now widely recognized across jurisdictions that the asset turnover based criteria may fail to capture potential anti-competitive transactions in new age digital markets. However, to evolve a suitable regulatory response, it is important to have a strong empirical basis for doing the same. Cogent and complete information on such transaction trends would go a long way in analyzing digital transactions from the competition standpoint. The collection and analysis of digital sector transaction data thus assumes particular importance. The proposed competition amendment bill also aims to expand the ambit of notification criteria by incorporating any other criteria which may help bring digital transactions within the fold of merger review. The Commission recently conducted an internal study on these trends with the purpose of bridging information gaps that currently limit the understanding of combination in digital markets for policy and regulatory needs. The study provides a trend and a number of deals in the digital sector in India that escaped the scrutiny of CCI owing to asset turnover falling below the thresholds. This study is a work in progress, and with the second session of this workshop, we hope to understand the trends, motivations, and changing market landscape in certain tech verticals on account of these mergers and acquisitions. However, while deciding notification thresholds, competition regimes have to strike a balance so that excessive filings do not choke up the agency's resources and significant deals do not slip out of jurisdiction. I hope that this workshop will allow for a discussion on a range of issues pertaining to the startup ecosystem and competition and provide useful inputs and insights for stakeholders, policymakers, and regulators. The future of technology markets in India is in for exciting times. Unicorns will become decacorns, and we already have a few of them. Large tech companies have established their footprints, and large Indian conglomerates have also forayed into the digital space. How market competition will evolve is yet to be seen, and we look forward to deliberations on these issues in this workshop. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. It's my pleasure and privilege to now introduce our keynote speaker, Mr. Nandan M. Nilekani. Though he needs no introduction, let me take this opportunity to say a few words about him. Mr. Nilekani is the co-founder and chairman of Infosys Technologies Limited. He was the founding chairman of the Unique Identification Authority of India. Most recently, Mr. Nilekani has co-founded and is the chairman of EkStep, a not-for-profit effort to create a learner-centric, technology-based platform to improve basic literacy and numeracy for millions of children. Mr. Nilekani has been a recipient of numerous awards and honors. To mention a few, he was awarded the Padma Bhushan in 2006. He also received the prestigious Joseph Schumpeter Prize for Innovative Services in Economy, Economic Sciences and Politics. He won the Economist Social and Economic Innovation Award for his leadership of Aadhaar. He has been inducted as International Honorary Member of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences in 2019. Mr. Nilekani is the author of Imagining India, has co-authored his second book, Rebooting India, Realizing a Billion Aspirations, and co-authored his third book, The Art of Bitfulness, Keeping Calm in the Digital World, which was recently released in January this year. With these words, we now request Mr. Nilekani to kindly deliver the keynote address.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Gupta, Chairman of Competition Commission of India, members of the Competition Commission, other team members and participants, I'm really delighted and privileged to be speaking at this workshop on startup ecosystem and competition, which the CCI has organized. I think this is a very timely intervention to bring stakeholders together. And it is really wonderful to see the importance and knowledge of the CCI on what's happening in technology and digital markets. I think we are at a cusp of really large digital transformation in India. This is what the Prime Minister calls a decade. But getting it right, getting the market conditions right, making sure there's adequate competition, making sure there's enough innovation, all these are very important. And therefore, we have to look at the whole gamut of techno-legal requirements to make that happen. The reason why India is in a particularly good spot in the world is there are three different and independent trends, which are also related in some way, which have come together. The first is, of course, that the pandemic has only accelerated the digital transformation around the world. What the last 2 years has forced all of us to get into virtual modes of operation, to conduct our meetings virtually, to buy virtually, to order food virtually. Everything is now virtual. And this has essentially made companies and governments around the world understand that digital transformation is an absolute imperative. And fortunately for us, India is now seen as the global capital of the capabilities for this digital transformation. Today, the global technology, export industry of India is about $190 billion. India's exports of software and BPM services are more than Saudi Arabia's export of oil. It has played a huge part in addressing our foreign exchange deficit and so on. But it also has done one more thing, which is it has built a large technology talent pool in India. So because of the fact that we have many large companies providing global services, this has allowed people to work on most compelling and complex problems worldwide. And that has created a whole army of people with experience, which can later on be deployed, for example, in the startup space. So this is now, as I said, a $190 billion industry, which is growing at double digits, and therefore is a huge driver of the economy, job creation, and also technology assimilation, which is very important. The second part, of course, is what Mr. Gupta referred to as India's digital public goods. Over the last decade or so, India has been on a fascinating journey of creating population scale digital public goods, which can actually help millions of people to get better services. One example, of course, is the Aadhaar, but there are many other examples. And it is now accepted, and we saw that in the recent budget also, that India's improvements will come from creating large-scale digital platforms which can be used to deliver services and create more opportunity. But these digital platforms also have a very, very important role in the context of today's workshop, which is the role in enabling competition. When we talk about competition, we talk about, creating a legal framework for competition, creating a legal, technical, regulatory framework for competition, having a policy on mergers and acquisitions and so on. But it's equally important to have a technological framework for enabling competition. And we need to translate things like portability and mobility into actual tech solutions that enable that. And I'll come back to that with 4 examples in the Indian context. And the third thing, of course, has been the rise of the Indian startup industry. I've been observing this industry now for several years. but we can definitely say that this last year of 2021 was the year in which the startup world has come of age. As the chairman mentioned, we have had 44 unicorns in 2021 of a total valuation of about $90 billion. And it is expected that in 2022, there will be another 50 unicorns that will happen. And this is again because there is enormous talent. Some of the talent is brand new talent coming out of colleges. Some of it is the talent that came out of the people who have worked in this global industry. It has come because India has many fascinating problems and opportunities to solve. And it has come because of the global flow of capital, both from global capital as well as angel investors of people who made their fortune from the first generation of technology for redeploying it for the startup world. So these three things are all coming together. The global demand for technology, India's unique digital public goods, and a thriving startup ecosystem. And I really believe now that these startups are going to play an increasingly strategic role in India's transformation. You could not have said that 4-5 years back because startups were still on the margin of what is happening. But today, with the number of startups going up, them being there in every field, many of them with very ambitious plans, I think they're playing a huge role in the Indian economy. And therefore, we have to ensure that we create a level playing field and a competitive landscape for them. It is also important that startups help in accelerating change in the society. A good example of that is what happened in the electric vehicle market. If you notice in the US, the electrical vehicle market was transformed by Tesla, and that in turn has essentially all the great mobile automobile companies in the world are now adopting electric vehicles, and we see a very fast race towards electric vehicles happening. Similarly, in India, we have seen the arrival of many startups for electric vehicle two-wheelers, and that in turn is getting incumbents to move faster on producing EVs. So startups not only create opportunity for themselves, they also act as catalysts to take an incumbent industry which may be relatively slower to adopt to new technology and force them to adopt to new technology to face competitive pressure. So I think that's very important. Now, I talked about the fact that we have multiple ways of doing regulation and legal things. But let me talk about how technology can also be used for enabling competition. So just like the challenge with digital markets is concentration, which leads to gatekeeper kind of organizations, the right design of technology will allow the opposite, which is allow more players to participate and do that in a way that there's more competition and innovation. And let me talk about 4 things that we have done in India, which are specifically targeted towards ensuring more competition. The first is the ability to do electronic KYC. The electronic Know Your Customer was something which was started with the Aadhaar eKYC, but now there are many other ways to do eKYC. You can do the PAN-based eKYC, you can do a video eKYC, but all of them are based on the same premise, that to get access to a bank account, a mobile connection, a mutual fund, a pension product, or an insurance product, you can do an online electronic authentication and verification of your identity, which enables you to buy that product. Now, why is this important? First of all, as we saw in the pandemic, when it was difficult to do face-to-face transactions, it enabled people to do remote transactions on their phone. But also equally, it allowed you to accelerate customer acquisition. And accelerating customer acquisition is the key to new players in a market accelerating and creating competition. And I'll give you 2 examples. See, what happened in the mobile industry was not only that the new mobile companies came, because they used eKYC to get new mobile consumers, they were able to get millions of new consumers very simply and electronically in real time. And that enabled them to create new competitive pressure. The same thing happened in banking, where apart from the regulator allowing new forms of banks like payment banks and small banks. These banks were then able to use the KYC to rapidly get new customers and therefore create more competition in the market. So KYC has been a very, very important part of the competition creation in India. And it's going to happen in banking, mobile telephony. It's going to happen in insurance with new insurance providers using eKYC. It's happening in capital markets as eKYC has simplified the ability for new people to enter the capital markets and invest in mutual funds. It's going to happen in pensions. So this is one example of how a technology-enabled way for consumers to enter a market enables you to create competition. The second is, of course, the example that Mr. Gupta referred to is UPI. UPI is a state-of-the-art payment system, but it's also designed to encourage competition. And it's important to contrast how India's payments have evolved compared to China's. In China, they have two very large payment providers, and these payment providers, all payments are done, 90% of digital payments are done by these two providers. And now the consequences of that are being recognized. And as you know, the Chinese government is doing many things to address that. In India, this was averted by essentially creating a public utility called UPI, which was a payment platform not run by a company, not run by a for-profit company, but run by the non-profit company NPCI. And UPI was designed, I'm an advisor to NPCI. I think Praveena from NPCI is there on the panel later. So UPI was thought about, conceived about 7-8 years back, and it was rolled out in May of 2016. It was still very, very incipient. It was doing only about 100,000 transactions a month in October of 2016. And then there was the demonetization of certain currency notes, and then digital payments was adopted in a big way. The BHIM was launched. And then subsequently, the pandemic again gave a further push to digital payments as people could not go out and they wanted to make contactless payments. And today, UPI is doing 4.5 billion transactions a month of a value of more than $100 billion a month. And it's the fastest growing payment system in the world. But what is also important is that UPI is designed to create a competitive landscape. UPI allows every bank to participate. So I can have a bank account in any bank and be a participant in UPI. And on the front end side, UPI can use any consumer app to do my payment. So I can use, Phone Pay, Paytm, WhatsApp Pay, Google Pay. There's so many options, Apple Pay. There are many, many other options that are coming. So this allows multiple players to provide payments, and people have full portability. So they can switch their apps without changing their bank accounts. They can switch their bank accounts without changing their app. So this kind of interoperability and portability allows people to pick and choose which system they want. And people will decide based on innovation and which one is easier to use. And therefore, we have essentially created a payment system which allows competition, and that has been the heart of why the adoption of this has been so high, and is a great example of how if you create a competitive, innovative landscape, you can dramatically accelerate innovation and adoption of new technology. So the second example is UPI. The third example is what is called as the account aggregator framework. This is again, India is the first country in the world to adopt an account aggregator framework. This effort has been led by the Reserve Bank of India on behalf of the FSDC, the Financial Stability Development Council, which is all the financial regulators. And account aggregator infrastructure allows people to leverage their own data to get access to certain services. A great example of that is lending. So if I'm a small business, then I can use my account aggregator and get my data from the GST system or from the banking system, and then give it to a lender who can then decide using AI whether I'm eligible for a loan or not. And this is essentially empowering people with their own data. And this is something which is very, very strategic, very, very important. And the lending is just the first use case of the account aggregator system. But the design of that is meant for any industry. For example, I can use the account aggregator system as a way to create portable data for healthcare. I can use that to create a portable data for skills and so on and so forth. So this is again is a very important thing. The system has been rolled out in the banking sector and is already seeing thousands of transactions going and growing very rapidly every week. And this is again very important because data portability, data empowerment, ability to take data from one location to another location seamlessly online is very, very important to create a competitive environment and no walled gardens. And then finally, the fourth one example I will give is, again, Chairman Gupta referred to it, is the Open Network for Digital Commerce, where again, I'm on the advisory council. And the idea is to create an open platform which will allow everyone to participate in the e-commerce revolution. And this allows multiple players to participate. So on the supplier side, many more suppliers can participate in this open platform and offer their products and their services to be sold. And on the consumer side, any retailer can also participate. So if a consumer wants to buy something, he just puts out a bid or request to buy something, and anybody in that open system can put up the hand and say that we will supply it to you. So if I put in a request to buy something, maybe a retailer who is just a few hundred meters from my house can say, I'm right close to you, I have this product at this price, and I can have it delivered to you. And you can place the order and get the product. And this opens up because, again, rather than limiting e-commerce to just 2, 3, or 4 large players, this will allow multiple small retailers to participate in the e-commerce revolution. And this is a very important thing because if retail in India is going to be about $1 trillion in size, and even if you assume that in the next 3 to 4 years, 20% of that is going to be e-commerce, then that's going to be a $200 billion industry. And it's very important that we enable everyone to participate in this. And ONDC and account aggregator also addresses another issue of monopsony. We have talked about monopolies where people are dominant and have, consumers have few choices. But monopsonies are also equally risky because they essentially create just 1 or 2 big buyers, and therefore sellers don't have much of a choice. Now, how does ONDC and account aggregator help in monopsony? The reason is that, number one, it opens up the channels for suppliers. So if I'm a supplier of a particular product or service, not only I can sell it through any platform out there, I can also offer it on the open platform and allow any buyer to come and buy. And therefore, I increase the number of buyers that I have. It also allows me to carry my data with me. So for example, if I'm a supplier and I have a certain track record of supplying on a platform, which is I give high quality, on time, at a good price, that digital data will be with me as using the account aggregator framework. So when a new platform opens up, I can go to that platform and say, look, this is my track record of supply on this particular platform, and therefore I would like to come onto your platform. The same thing would happen, for example, for taxi drivers. So if a taxi driver has established a record of good driving and safe driving on one platform, he can take his data with him using the account aggregator framework and go to another platform and start providing his services there. Same thing can be done with skills, where people can take their portable skill records to somebody else. So I think the point I'm trying to make is that I think it's very, very important what this workshop is doing. I think it's focusing on some very, very live issues. Digital markets can be, tricky in the way that they can create winner-take-all kind of models, and creating a competitive and innovative network for digital markets is very important. A large part of that is obviously laws and regulations on mergers, on interoperability, on right to data portal, and so on. But an equally large part of making this happen is the technological infrastructure below the system, which has to be enabled. And India is actually, we can safely say, is a world leader in creating the digital public goods to enable digital competition. People from all over the world are now looking at us and seeing how they can emulate what we have done. And therefore, I'm really delighted that in this workshop, the CCI is bringing together not only the commission, but also startups, technologists, and others, and see how we can shape a better future, because this is going to be key to India's transformation in the coming years. So once again, thank you very much and all the best for this workshop.
Thank you very much, sir. May I now request Ms. Payal Malik, Advisor, Competition Commission of India, to kindly propose a vote of thanks.
Thank you. Good morning to all participants and panelists. Distinguished keynote speaker for today, Mr. Nandan M. Nilekani, Chairman and Co-founder Infosys and Founding Chairman UIDAI, Chairperson Competition Commission of India, Mr. Ashok Kumar Gupta, Member Dr. Sangeeta Verma, Member Mr. Bishnoi, Secretary Mr. Ghosh Dastidar, all my colleagues and participants. It is my privilege to propose a vote of thanks at this workshop. This workshop, as mentioned by the chairperson in his special address, is one of the many stakeholder consultations that the Commission has engaged in, especially in sectors facing a technological disruption, for understanding new parameters of competition. For a market regulator, such as the CCI, these workshops are important for bridging any information gaps and for developing regulatory tools if required. On behalf of the Commission, I sincerely thank Mr. Nandan Nilekani for agreeing to deliver the keynote address at this workshop. Arguably, Mr. Nilekani was the harbinger of the technological revolution that India has witnessed in the form of the emergence of a vibrant startup ecosystem, of course, as mentioned by him, fueled by India's deep reservoir of engineering and entrepreneurial talent. Aadhaar, as we know, Mr. Nilekani was the founding chairman, along with India Stack, provides technological solutions for identity verification, digital storage, and payments easily and affordably, the necessary digital public infrastructure support required for startups. With his penchant for digital solutions to democratize technology by bringing public digital goods and public digital rails for private players to build on, Mr. Nilekani has ushered a new path for economic growth and development, a path where economic growth is not based on capital accumulation alone, but also on the innovative capacity spurred by appropriable knowledge and technological externalities. Such discontinuous bursts of innovative investments by entrepreneurs constitute an autonomous cause of economic growth. As mentioned by the keynote speaker this morning, in addition to the legal framework for bringing in competition in digital markets, what is important that a technological framework or an underlying infrastructure enables, stimulates competition, which can break the monopoly and monopsony shackles in the market. Initiatives, as pointed out by Mr. Nilekani, UPI, the Open Credit Enablement Network Protocol, the Account Aggregator Framework, and the recently launched Open Network for Digital Commerce, all create positive technological externalities and are expected to infuse competition in the digital space and provide a fillip to the digital transformation of India. Our special thanks to our knowledge partners, IIIT Bangalore, for curating this workshop along with us. Without the continued support of Professor V. Sridhar, a member of the Commission's think tank on digital markets, and his team, this workshop would not have been possible. Our thanks to another member of the Commission's think tank on digital markets, Dr. Arghya Sen Gupta, founder and research director, Vidhi Center for Legal Policy, for his deep insights that have helped us in formulating the contours of the first session. We thank Mr. Ruhin Dharmakumar, Chief Executive Officer, the Ken, for helping us navigate with the merger and acquisition session. Ken's stories that we look forward to see in our inbox each morning have helped us in identifying sectors that have an immense M&A activity in the last few years. We look forward to this continuous consultation process, and the stage has been set in so very well by Mr. Nelikani to trigger issues and discussions and deliberations in the technical sessions that follow. With this, we come to an end to this inaugural session. Thank you very much to all of you. Namaskar. We will reconvene for the technical session, Big Tech and Startups, Synergies and Challenges at 11 a.m.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you.